Thank you all for all the wonderful questions, and as we've gone through these examinations, the 3 different systems, we're on to our 4th now, Dominion voting. Dr. Eric Coomer, Waldeep Singh, go ahead.
All right.
I don't know mine.
Hi, my name is Waldeep Singh. I'm the Executive Vice President of Sales for Dominion Voting. With me I have Dr. Eric Coomer. I have a group as well, David Marino, who is also Director of Product Development and Management, along with Eric. I have Norma Townsend, Shanice Smith, and Marco Artiega, who also service both Cook and the City of Chicago currently. And with me I also have John Poulos, who is our President and CEO. So we're here to answer any questions, obviously not of the technical nature. We'll leave that to the doctor and David. But certainly any questions that arise, we'll be able to address them. My 30-second spiel on Dominion voting. We operate in 33 states. We have more than 1,200 customers across the country. We just installed a large system in Puerto Rico, Elections Ontario as well, and we're upgrading accounts obviously throughout the country. Just in terms of format today, we are going to walk through our product mix. And our product mix will start with warehouse logistics and things like that. So we'll talk about things that are germane to the individuals that actually use the equipment, from warehouse to training to voters as well. So Eric will start with the warehouse, and then he'll walk through actually starting the voting process. So if you have any questions along the way, by all means ask them, or we can wait till the end. It's entirely up to you.
Hi, everybody. So we're going to start with our latest product offering. It's the ImageCast X. The X is because it's highly configurable. We're showing you 2 configurations here. The first one is it works as a ballot marking device. So it's a similar interface to the current Edge 2 Plus machines that are used for early vote and ADA. But it has a ballot marking device as opposed to VVPAT, which is over here in this configuration. This is essentially identical to the Edge 2 Plus, obviously with the latest and greatest hardware and software on it. So what's nice about these devices is, first, they are all commercially available off the shelf. They're not proprietary. Go ahead and turn this one on. I'm going to walk through actually programming the machine. So what's the advantage there? First, from a maintenance and operational aspect, things like the touchscreen. You no longer have to configure and calibrate the actual touchscreens, which is a big issue with the current devices. The other thing is that they have standard interfaces, standard USB sticks for programming and getting your results. So as this unit starts up, it's not currently configured. So much like we do currently, we have our election management system, and you put your machine files on the USB stick, plug it into the port in the back. One of the other key things that we've really focused on is security. So in order to actually interact with the device to program an election, you need a security card. This is a tech worker's card. It provides a physical access mechanism as well as a required PIN to access the device. And once I do that, loading the election is simply hitting load settings, choosing the file, and copy. So what's going on here right now is it's actually decrypting the file. We don't share any election information in plain text. Everything's encrypted. My machine's now programmed. The election's on there. In order to open the polls, I have a second card. It's a poll worker card, and that's unique. That can be unique to the precinct, can be unique to the entire election. It's really configurable through the election management system. So as a poll worker, again, I have a card and a PIN to provide access. And to open the polls, first decrypts the file. So this includes all of the ballot styles for the entire election. So you can program one USB stick and then control what precincts are available on the machine, either when you open the polls or through the card activation system, which we'll get to in a second here. So I'm going to go ahead and choose precinct 1. It's verifying all of the files, and then I hit open poll, confirm. My polls are open. That's it. So, currently for us, and this has an actual Chicago Cook ballot and all of the precinct information that's in a real election. To open the polls, to program the machine currently used in the city and Cook County, it's about an hour and a half, what I just walked through. And you saw me do that in, I don't know, maybe 3 minutes. So that's setting up, opening the polls. Now we'll go through the voting experience. So I'm a voter. I walk in, much like you do today, and get looked up on voter registration system. And that tells what ballot style I'm going to get to vote on, right, depending on where I live. Currently, there's yet another device that's out there in the polling locations. It's what's called the HAT, if you're familiar with that. It's a hybrid activator, accumulator, and transmitter. Right? That's another separate proprietary piece of equipment that we've gotten away from. Everything's done, again, on either off-the-shelf components or very lightweight, targeted specific devices. So we have an activation system here. And again, it's very simple. Poll worker puts in the card. It automatically detects, and I choose the ballot style, and I hit activate. That's it. This system can also integrate directly with existing e-poll books that are in the market. We've done that with a couple different vendors. The idea is here we would integrate with the existing poll books in either the city or the county as well. So once the voter gets the card, they simply walk up to the device. And again, we can support all the languages. Currently we have it in English, Spanish, and Chinese. We can do all of the current languages that are here, including Hindi, both Mandarin and Cantonese, etc. So go ahead and hit that. This is also a fully ADA compliant device. So we have what's called an ATI, an audio tactile interface, to provide access for disabled or limited mobility voters. It has full audio feedback. It also does support switch devices, 2-switch devices, and sip and puff as well. I can change my text size on the unit. I can also change the contrast levels. Again, it's really about accessibility for voters that have different needs. Again, the interface is very similar to the Edge 2 Plus that's currently in the city and the county. I have navigation buttons. Here's my proposal. Right? To select, I simply touch the screen. If I want to choose another option, I deselect. Again, very much like what voters are used to currently. So we'll go ahead and hit next. We'll vote a couple contests here. We'll go to review. Now again, I said multiple configurations are available for this device. This one is a ballot marking device. So I've made all of my selections through the screen, and then when I hit print ballot, I'm going to get a ballot that's printed out on this device right next, which again is an off-the-shelf HP printer. Now it's a rather long ballot, so it takes 2 sides. It auto-duplexes, and this is the ballot I get out for the voter. Right? So it shows all of their selections by contest, shows the ballot style that they voted. At this point, they would put it in a secrecy sleeve, and then walk over to, this is what's called the image cast precinct. Right? This is what scans the ballot. This is similar to currently the Insight that's used in Chicago and Cook County. So this is warning me that I've undervoted one of the major contests, the state constitutional contests. As a voter, I can choose to cast that or return it. I'm going to go ahead and cast. And then that would drop right into the ballot box. Voter's done at this point. So that's one method, one configuration that we offer. This same device can also handle standard hand-marked ballot as well. Same device, there's no configuration that's necessary. Voter simply gets a ballot, marks it out, puts it right into the device. And this one's going to return to me because I've got an overvote on there. So again, it offers second chance voting, and I can go ahead and cast that again.
That's, I think that's the wrong precinct.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
yeah.
So this machine is configured for precinct 1, and we printed ballots for precinct 1 and 2. So if you feed a ballot for precinct 2, the machine is going to kick it back and it's going to tell you this ballot is not accepted in this device, like it works today in the current issues.
That was the ballot box back there, by the way. All right, so those are two methods of using an increasing scanner. We also have the ImageCast X configured as a true DRE, which is a direct record electronic device. So instead of getting a physical ballot that then gets scanned, it stores the records electronically and prints out what's called a VVPAT receipt, which is a text representation of the vote. So again, it's the same interface. I have the navigation buttons. I can make my selections. And when I go to review, when I hit print, it's actually printing the record of the vote here on the VVPAT. So I get the opportunity for each page for the voter to verify that that is how they wanted to cast their ballot. I can print the next page. If you notice here, the screen is actually going blank. That's done for voter privacy. So currently, if out in the field, sometimes things happen where the VVPAT may malfunction for whatever reason. And when that happens, if it's in the middle of printing a vote, a poll worker has to come and interact with the machine and can see how a voter is actually casting their ballot. This prevents that from happening. So if anything needs to be addressed, if a voter needs some assistance for whatever reason, they can do that in privacy. And I think there's one more page to print after this one.
Also, in the current machines, after each voter, the printer advanced basically 12 inches of paper, so the next voter doesn't see the record of the previous voter. And that's basically 12 inches of wasted space.
Right.
With this screen that completely blanks, we don't have to go that 12 inches because it's only going to show you the new record of the new voter. The record of the previous voter is not going to be visible at all.
Yeah, again, the biggest thing there is, again, from a usability maintenance aspect, it's limiting the number of times you have to change the paper roll, which, again, in the current system can be arduous. So if I do need to change the paper roll, I simply open the device here. I have one lever that comes down here. I have one lever that comes up here. And my spindle simply pops out. Pops right back in. Put the lever up, put that one down, my paper roll's done. Again, we've really looked at, over the last 11 years of doing elections here, working the ground, trying to streamline the process, make it easier for the poll workers, make it easier for the warehouse workers, and make it easier for the voters as well. So at that point, again, depending on the configuration that you go with, you're either storing the votes locally or you're scanning all of the paper records on the ICP. At the end of the election day, much like the poll worker card to access the ICX, we have a key for accessing the ICP. I'm going to go ahead and close polls. It's a single button. I confirm yes. Once the polls are closed, my reports are going to start printing automatically. Actually, I don't think I have it configured for that.
No, that one is not configured to print automatically.
If it's configured to print automatically, it'll print anywhere from 1 to 5, 10 copies, however many are needed in the jurisdiction. As well, this device can transmit directly. So that's all part of that closed polls process. You hit that button once, it prints out the tapes. When it's done printing out the tapes, it will automatically transmit the results as well. So there's no more need for a hat to consolidate from multiple devices. It's all one device. Poll workers don't have to interact with it other than hitting the button. You don't have to remove the memory cards. You don't have to consolidate it into a third device. everything's directly from here. Finally, we do have one more in-precinct solution. This is called the ImageCast Evolution. Again, we try to make it simple. As soon as you pull open the privacy screen, it boots up. Simply hit Open Polls. You have to put in a password again. This works very much like the ImageCast Precinct. It accepts either the ICX marked ballots or the hand marked ballots. It's actually printing the zero proof automatically there. I'm going to go ahead and interrupt that. So simply feed the ballot in here. This will actually also work in a mode where you can get a full ballot review. So again, a voter can see exactly how their vote was scanned from the paper record. This is showing me any issues here. I've got a couple of the major contests undervoted. Again, I can return it or I can go ahead and cast it. So the voter has a second chance to take that ballot and address the mistakes. The key thing with this device, what sets this apart from the ImageCast Precinct, is it is an all-in-one ADA accessible device as well. So if I'm a disabled voter, instead of going to a separate device, I am simply given a blank ballot. Got a blank in here. Simply given a blank ballot. I have to mark my judge's initials. We're going to set up, the poll worker needs to enable the device for an accessible voting here, and at that point, the voter inserts the blank ballot. It's scanning the ballot to determine what ballot style it is, and then it will allow me to make my selections on the screen either using the ATI or the touchscreen. So I confirm my language that I'm using the ATI. Again, you can use paddles, sip and puff. And at this point, I can interact completely through the ATI. You'll notice it's a very similar interface as the ICX. We did that on purpose. So we're not having two different voter experiences depending on what equipment you use. So again, this works very similar to the current system with the ATI. I navigate through the contests. I make my selections. I'm going to go ahead and go all the way to review here. What's going to happen is once I review my ballot and I'm satisfied with it, I can hit mark. There's an internal printer that's going to make marks on the ballot depending on the selections I made on the screen, and then deposit that ballot directly into the ballot box.
Something important of these marks that are created on the ballot is we have a huge library of handmade marks. So it's not a perfect oval that you're going to be able to identify that was marked by a machine. But it's a library of different random hand marks that looks like somebody else used a Sharpie to vote the ballot. So you're not going to be able to say this is a ballot voted by the accessible voter, and this is a ballot voted by a person with a Sharpie, for example, with a marker.
Yeah, again, it's all about preserving voter anonymity. If you only have one or two disabled voters in a given precinct, and if you're using standard marking techniques where they're an exact perfect fill of that oval, you would be able to distinguish that ballot from somebody that just hand marked it. So this is one of those further steps that we do to preserve that anonymity. So that's our in-precinct solution. We also have, yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. We also have our central count solution. So I'm going to take a stack of ballots here. So there's a theme here, commercially available off-the-shelf units. So this device would replace what's currently the 400C, which is more like the size of the entire table. This is the whole unit. If you need to maintain the unit before you start scanning ballots,
Well, let me,
am I taking your thunder?
This is the only thing I do.
maintenance on election day. You can't beat this. That's the maintenance on election day. I'll put this one back down.
Yeah, thank you. 400Cs, they generally take multiple operators because you have a big, large, very high-speed paper path, and then it shoots papers in a couple different directions. This device, you simply put the ballots in the hopper, you hit scan, that's it. It's going to scan. When it's done, I'm going to hit accept. That's all I have to do with this device.
And the length of the ballot is not material. We can go up to 22 inches, various styles, various configurations. So it's not an issue on any of our categories.
Yeah, so this is currently an 8.5 by 14 inch ballot. We can do everything down to an 8.5 by 11, all the way up to an 8.5 by 22 inch ballot. Really flexible layouts as well. This is currently a 3-column, but we can do up to 4 columns. You can also do a mix. So if you have a large referenda with a lot of text, you can put that right across the top, voting targets below that, and then you can have multiple columns below that for other contests. So currently with the 400C, if there's an issue with the ballot, if it is overvoted or if there's write-ins, they get what's called outstack. If they're write-ins, they go into the middle bin. If it's an outstack because of an overvote, it goes in the upper bin. None of that happens with this device. We handle everything currently digitally. This is our digital adjudication system. Rotate that so everybody can see. So any ballot that would normally be outstacked shows up here on the screen. If you have multiple ICCs, ImageCast Centrals running, they all write the data to a network drop location, and you can have multiple adjudication stations for multiple teams to handle the outstacked ballots. All right, this one, I can actually zoom in here a little bit. This is a typical voter intent issue where they didn't fill out the ovals completely, they just made little tick marks. It's what's called an ambiguous mark. And what we're saying is, we're not sure what the voter intent is, but we're going to allow the adjudicators to make that call based on any kind of state statutes. So right on the screen, I can go ahead and say, you know what? The voter meant to mark these. They wanted those votes to count for those candidates. I can do the back page. I'm not going to fill all of them in here. And then I hit complete. It's going to go on to the next ballot. And this is another classic one where the voter has circled the names instead of filling in the ovals. Any ballot that needs to be looked at will show up automatically on the screen. The other key thing here is what I haven't talked about. So obviously we take an image of every ballot that's cast, front and back, but we also have what's called the audit mark. That's part of the image, and it is a text record of how the scanner actually counted that ballot when it was scanned. So it shows here, and there's a variety of information that's included on that. It shows which tabulator it was scanned on, which batch it was created in. And for the ICC, because it's central, it actually gives you the number of the ballot within the stack. We do the same audit mark creation on the precinct devices, but we don't index the paper, again, for voter anonymity. But again, you'll see here, it just shows you exactly how that ballot was marked and counted when it was scanned. This is coming up as actually a blank ballot. Again, if you look at the front, it's because they circled the names. Okay, so nothing is being counted. But again, as an adjudicator based on voter intent, I can go ahead and make these selections based on voter intent. And once I hit complete, we're actually updating the audit mark based on the adjudications that were made. So if I go back here and bring that ballot up, so here's the one with the circles. If I go and view that audit mark, here's the original audit mark that showed everything was blank. And if I scroll down here, here's the adjudicated audit mark. So it's showing, again, for U.S. Senator, it was adjudicated and vote was for, we have some dummy names in there, Senator Democratic. Right? So all of that is tracked. So there's a complete record from once that ballot was first scanned, all the way through adjudication, all the way through tally of what happened with that ballot and why it's being counted that way. So, that audit mark. Some key things here. This is a great tool for doing things like audits and recounts. Okay, so things like 5% recounts these days. We have an entire additional system that works very similar to the adjudication product, but it's for reviewing ballots. So you can select whether you want to filter by precinct, a random selection of precincts, or just a random sampling of ballots across the whole election to actually audit. We're doing that to support things, the buzzword in the industry these days are risk limiting audits. It's a statistical way of auditing election results, and we can support that through this system as well. If a candidate wants to come in and possibly contest the results of the election, maybe go for a recount, we can actually provide an interface for them to sit down and look at the ballots that they're on. So let's say they're on a local race and there's maybe a couple thousand ballots out of the 1.5 million that there are. We can filter those. They can look through the individual images and compare the audit marks. And we've had candidates do that in real elections, and that's been enough proof for them, and they've never gone for a recount after that. So again, it's all about the auditability, the traceability of the results from the time they're cast all the way to tally, and providing that mechanism for auditing and verifying those results as well.
And keep in mind, that cuts across all of our tabulators and all of our products. So irrespective of what device you actually use to cast a ballot, we will take an image of that ballot. So at the end of the day, when you're talking about auditing, you can audit the entire election.
Sure.
Is there a judge involved?
We'll
Okay,
just
sorry.
stick with it.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Sorry, decided to sneak one in.
We'll definitely get to all your questions for sure. Yeah, so stepping back a bit here, all of these devices, they're all driven by one single database. So whether you're voting in the precinct on the ICX, whether you're voting in the precinct on paper ballots, whether you're getting a mail ballot, everything, all the layout for the screens, all the layout for the paper, it's all done in one system. It's our election management system. We also provide, from that same system, UACAVA voters. So an online portal for overseas voters, military voters. From that same database, what they end up printing at home is the exact same ballot that comes out of the ICX BMD. So I think it's on the floor back there.
The ACC. It's on the ACC. Next to it.
Oh, yeah. It's this same ballot that gets printed out on the ballot marking device. A UACAVA voter can print this at home and mail it back. And then it can be scanned directly on our units as well. So it is the full service election system, regardless of the voting channel. Oh, yeah. So again, full service. Voter comes in, if they don't want to vote on the ICX and they want a hand-marked ballot, we can actually print that ballot on demand directly in the precinct. Again, it's all about a simple interface. Voter walks in, they get looked up on the voter registration system. We can integrate with poll books, just like for the activation cards, we can do that for the mobile ballot production. Since we're not hooked up to a VR system, I can go ahead and just choose print on the screen here, and it will print out a ballot that can be hand marked and then scanned on our in-precinct scanner as well. Yep. It's got to warm up here. But it's again, it's a full color, full automatic duplex. It'll print out that 8.5 by 14 and all the way up to the 22-inch ballot as well. So it's going to print the first side, it'll automatically print the second, and then that ballot can be handed directly to the voter. So there's no need to pre-print all of your ballot files and have that stock on hand. significantly reduces costs, transportation, everything, so you don't have to actually deliver all the stacks of ballots. So here's the ballot, and then be hand marked, and again, scanned directly on the device. And I think that
And
is
you
all
no
of it.
longer have, in terms of printing, you no longer have the same tolerances that you had before. So on your current 400C, you had to have a pristine ballot, right? It had to be perfectly printed, all the corners had to match. We have much more flexibility with the ballot today than we did 10 years ago.
Can I touch it?
Oh, sure.
You can mark it too if you want, I'll scan it.
The other thing is we no longer need to use the heavy cardstock that the current ballots are printed on. Again, that was done mainly because the 400C needs to have that heavy paper because of the ballot path. Since we're using off-the-shelf scanners, we can go to a much lighter weight paper. It's a lot cheaper. Yeah. Your mailing costs go down if you're mailing out ballots. Handling costs go down because they're just not as big.
And some of the items, obviously, we can't get to it in terms of the hour that we have today, but when you talk specifically with individuals that are actually doing some of these things, so when you're in a warehouse talking to actual warehouse technicians and how they deliver and how they store machines and things like that, it's very germane to the which product they actually use. So for example, in Clark County, Nevada, they just upgraded to this system. And what they do is they deploy 5,000 of these across their vote centers. And the way they store this unit can actually be stored in this orientation. So they have a cart that they actually store 10 across. So they were able to cut their warehouse in half by how they store this unit and how they deliver it. So their drayage costs go down, their storage costs go down. So there's a lot of functionality built into these units for specific purposes. When we talk about training, obviously if you go with just this unit, it's one unit to train. Eric demonstrated how easy it is to now open the polls. You no longer have all of those steps. You got to go hit print, you got to do this, you got to consolidate at the end of the night. You got to hit transmit, you got to go to the hat, you got to take this out of this and put it in this. So we've learned a lot, obviously, in the last 10 years. So we've been listening. It's not like we just sat in a room and said, you know, here's the next generation equipment and let me know how it goes. So these are conversations that we've had over multiple years with multiple individuals, not just within the city and county here, but also across the country. And it's reflected in our product. Now,
Final thing, current units, E2Ps. They have batteries. You need batteries in case you lose power in a voting precinct. You need to continue having a voting process. E2Ps have batteries. The ICX has batteries, but the E2P, the batteries are internal, can't be removed, and they need to be charged. So they need to be plugged into the wall. Here, we've got what's essentially a very large sort of laptop-type battery. There's actually two of them in there. So instead of having to hook each unit up to recharge the batteries, you can have an actual charging station. Right? So you can take, when the election's done, you can actually store the units very compactly, take out the battery, put it on a charging station, and then put it back in the device when your next election comes in. So again, it's all about streamlining that whole process from the warehouse all the way to the voter experience.
and some of the things that we've looked at when we've gone off the shelf on some of our products, certainly we also maintain some proprietary products as well. But you know, Canon can take a better image of a ballot than any voting system vendor that's out there. Right? This is what they do for a living. So one of the reasons we've gone there is that why don't we use this and leverage our software with their hardware? And in terms of maintenance, you saw my maintenance on election day. There's rollers in here. That's what you're actually replacing at any point in time. These rollers you can buy at Best Buy, you can buy at Fry's. It's not something that you have to get from a vendor. And it's a whole lot cheaper than replacing drums on 400Cs. It doesn't have all these moving parts and things like that. Similar to our ICX units, taking out the battery, you can store this till your next election. There's no preventative maintenance per se to do on these machines. It doesn't go out of calibration, so you don't have to do the things that you do now that obviously cost a lot of money when we're talking about upgrades and things like that. So efficiency is built in, transparency is built in, security is built in, so we've invested a lot in our product. We can take questions if you're
Good? Okay. Thank you. First question is from Dan Sheehan. Is transmission modem turned off during voting hours? Are you certified federally and at the state of Illinois? it says Chicago and Cook County. That part I can answer. We don't certify equipment, the state and the federal government does, but yes.
While the polls are open, there's no way to access the modem transmission function at all. We actually disable the port entirely.
And the second part, federal or state certified?
So we are federally certified, EAC certified with everything that you see on this table. We are also state certified with the number of things that are on this table, with the exception of this unit. It's a relatively new unit that we'll be taking through certification.
Next question,
And,
Kevin. Oh, I'm sorry.
And depending on the type of upgrade and how you scale that upgrade, whether it's a full cutover or a partial cutover, and it takes 2-3 years, our EMS currently can support any of these products that are on the table. So it could be a full cutover, it could be a 2-year cutover, it could be a 5-year cutover. So you would just add equipment as opposed to replacing the EMS entirely on the front. And that portion of the system is already state certified.
From Kevin McDermott, 1, if we use the true DRE, which captures votes, how is that voter data transmitted to the tally system?
Again, the ICX can have a modem attached to it, and you would transmit directly from the
How do you
device.
consolidate?
You consolidate on the unit itself. So if you have 3 ICX units, you'll have to take, the poll worker would take the USB out of 2 of them, plug them into any of them, but you're going to designate one as the consolidation unit. And that'll consolidate and then transmit. So you only need 1 modem for 1 device, consolidate all the memory sticks there.
Paper as well?
What's that?
If there's paper as well, how do you consolidate the paper count?
Yeah, you can consolidate an ICX with an ICP as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Secondly, what elements of the system are encrypted and what type of encryption is used?
Okay, so to put it bluntly, everything's encrypted. Again, you saw when I opened the polls, it had to decrypt the package, and that was done with the key that's written on the smart card. And I think we're currently using, well, we support a variety of encryption methodologies. AES 256.
Yeah, and they're all FIPS compliant to the latest EAC requirements. The PIN that he introduced decrypts the card to get the key to decrypt the election. So there is a double layer of encryption there.
Furthermore, not to get too technical, but once the package, the election files are decrypted, they're never stored anywhere. They're in cached memory. So when you power down the device, if you're on early vote, it's wiped out entirely. So there's never any live election data that's not encrypted stored on any of the devices. And that same mechanism works regardless of whether it's the ICP, ICX, or even the ICC.
Every time you turn on the machine, you need the key to decrypt and load in memory the election data, every time.
Okay, third, what is the scan rate for the replacement for the 400C?
Yeah, for naming that thing.
ICC, ImageCast Central. Yeah, all of our devices are ImageCast something, right? So ImageCast Precinct, ImageCast Central, ImageCast X for the X Factor. So scan rate. You know, you have to really look at what's really your throughput. So it's dependent on the length of the ballot, but for a standard 8.5 by 14, it's about 90 a minute. Okay. But again, when you look at the 400C, the 400 per minute, that's a nominal rate. You never get 400 a minute. One, because it stops every couple ballots, out stacks or jams or what have you. So throughput is very similar, but the actual processing throughput, because we're doing a digital adjudication, again, to talk numbers, we implemented this system in Denver, Colorado, and they saw a 70% decrease in personnel costs on the first election, simply going from 400Cs to ICCs and digital adjudication.
Nancy Svenen, is there an off switch for the ballot imaging function on the scanners?
You mean to not store the actual image? Is that?
To be able to turn it off at any point.
During, let's say, either before the polls open or during polling hours or immediately after, right? Well, after the polls, better stop scanning.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, once the polls are closed, they're closed, right? So I'm trying to again Do you mean, can I prevent a ballot from being scanned, or?
Yeah.
Can you prevent it from being imaged?
No, we capture an image of every piece of paper that goes through the system.
So there's no issue of some accidentally turning it off? That's what I was
No,
asking.
no, absolutely not.
If the image processing is not working, the scanner completely stops. So there's no way to feed a ballot. If the image processing or the physical scanner is not working, the machine will say, I'm down.
Lord Chamberlain, how do you secure that the ballot images cannot be altered or dropped from the digital record after the ballots are scanned, but before the results are transmitted?
So we sign all of the images. We don't encrypt the images because they're actually public records, right? But we do sign them, digitally sign them, so that prevents any kind of tampering with the image. And again, we also include the audit mark that shows exactly how that image, that ballot was processed when it was scanned as well.
Same question, or does the system allow alterations of the ballot images after the election?
Only through the adjudication system. Again, because I'm making adjudications on the records, we update the audit mark. We never update the actual image of the physical ballot front and back.
So
And again, we re-sign that through the system based on our encryption technology.
So outside of the adjudication process, no?
Right. If somebody tried to alter an image, it would invalidate the signature, and we would detect that on the system.
Same question, when you use the ballot marking device, the ballot that gets printed lists only the choices the voter has voted, correct?
Yes. Yeah, that's correct. And it will list if they didn't make a selection or they didn't fully vote a contest, it lists it as blank or selection not made.
Same question, or what is the longevity of the paper records produced by the system?
We meet all of the statutory requirements. I think it's a minimum of 2 years. But this, again, this is, standard off-the-shelf paper. It has a much longer shelf life.
Next, are there any memory devices in the scanner, the ICP, at all?
Yes, we have to store the images and the vote records somewhere. Each ICP or ICE has a redundant memory storage. For the ICP and ICC, we're using compact flashcards. For the ICX, we're using USB sticks.
What is the vehicle for the transmission from the ICP? Is it cellular modem versus VPN?
Well, it is a cellular modem that can be configured in a VPN, right? And we currently in Chicago and Cook County, we work with Verizon to secure that network. So we would have the same capabilities here.
Next, for the second ballot marking machine, does the voter get to check the ballot before the machine casts the ballot?
Yes, that they're reviewing the VVPAT. The VVPAT is actually the official record.
Yeah, that-
Oh yeah, it works the same. Yeah, there's a full review process as well
On the machine, but not on the ballot.
on the machine on the ballot.
You can have the ballot returned if you
Yeah.
After it's marked, you can look at it.
Yeah.
And then test, yes.
Yes.
Same question, I'm sorry.
No, but the ballot, after it's marked, is scanned by the scanner and it gives you the feedback. But you, after that, you can either cast or return it and see it physically if you want.
And mainly it's for, if you want to spoil the ballot, you want to change your mind and things of that nature. It doesn't have the capability to return.
Same question, are any of the software components of your system open source?
No, they are not.
Are there any circumstances where you would open your software to scrutiny by the public?
It depends on state statutes. We do work in a couple states that we're required to escrow all of our software, and public can request access to that in a controlled fashion.
Eric, I'll also chime in there. In some cases,
Feel free to come on,
oh, sorry.
Mr. Poulos.
In some cases where, in a few jurisdictions, we allow what we call controlled disclosure, where members of the public come in if the jurisdiction that's using the equipment so wants that, and members can do their own source code review on it. Certain conditions, they can't take it with them, but it's pretty straightforward.
George, I hope I do this right. Unzveda?
Yeah, pretty good.
Lucky. What wireless chipset / modem does the hardware have?
We support a variety. So it's really up to the jurisdictions, what technology they want to use, what's compatible with their networks.
Currently, in some jurisdictions, we're using basically a modem that is a 3G modem, GSM, but we can support multiple varieties of modems that can be.
Including the latest 4G standards as well.
So that answers the next question, is it 3G or 4G? Verizon, AT&T, or Sprint, I'm assuming all?
Yeah, all networks. Right. Just
We
as
have
a point of fact,
CDMA,
yeah. I mean, we actually transmit from the ICP in Mongolia as well, so we're not limited in networks.
And in Puerto Rico, there is 3 vendors because the island is not covered by any of the vendors completely. So we use 3 different cellular vendors for some ICPs with this vendor, Claro, AT&T, and T-Mobile, I think, in the different parts of the island. So.
Everything gets complicated. Layla, I'm sorry, I can't make out the... Rob. As the ballots are scanned, does the scanner print a serial number on the ballots before the ballot images are taken?
Not in the precinct devices, no.
Same questioner, then how do you find an image to corroborate with a real ballot early in the canvassing of election results?
So when you're dealing with in-precinct ballots, you know, you're trying to, you've got competing concerns of anonymity and then auditability, right? So I will say that is why on the central we keep everything and we index it, right? So there's an easy way to correlate the physical paper to the digital records. In the precinct, the fact is that even if you have, let's say, 500 ballots, it's pretty easy to, based on the image that's on the screen, actually correlate that to a physical piece of paper. We've done that in jurisdictions, and you know, of a batch of 750 ballots, it took us about 2 minutes to correlate all of the ballots to the digital records.
Next, Lord Chamberlain, what does your ballot box look like, and what are the security features, and what is the capacity? In other words, how many ballots would it store?
So it is identical to the current ballot box that's used in the city and the county. So we have a little mating piece that mates the ICP or the ICE to the current ballot boxes.
So and really, that's up to the jurisdiction. So we have hard case ballot boxes as well, based on the logistics in the city and county, the carriers and things like that is why they have the collapsible ballot box. But it can handle in terms of ballots.
So currently the county, for example, has the pullout out of the election supply carrier and then a bag that comes down. You can do either one?
Yes.
Okay. Claire Tobin, what happened in March 2012 when Dominion has got Sequoia voting systems? Oh, I don't know. When Sequoia voting system in Palm Beach County declared incorrect results for 3 different races?
Yeah. So that was not a system error. That was a ballot production error. When the jurisdiction coded up the ballot originally, they had the candidates swapped on 3 of the races. So they realized that it wasn't in the correct order, so they changed the order in the system. Ballots had already been printed, and they didn't catch it in proofing. So that's why they were swapped.
Same question. Dominion purchased Sequoia in June 2010. What is happening with their machines?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Sequoia's machines.
Sequoia's machines, when you purchased it in 2010, they're still in use, so what are you doing? Because there were, you know, a lot of reports of, you know, errors or whatever.
Well, we still support all of the legacy equipment from Sequoia. I mean, I was on site last week for the election here in Cook County. So we still provide full support for all of the equipment.
And to the extent, obviously, possible, we're trying to upgrade them to, obviously, the latest and greatest for a variety of different reasons. So I don't think anybody wants to hold on to their legacy systems, but it's a complicated upgrade process, right? It's not, it's funding, it's a lot of things that go into it.
Same questioner. Does your voting system use GEMS application, Global Election Management System?
No, it's our election management system. It's Dominion's. It's called Democracy Suite. We don't use any of the legacy products for that.
Jonathan Williams, what are you envisioning to carry the ICX and the ICP to the precinct polling place?
We'd work with, to try to work with vendors to actually either update your carriers down, so we work within those parameters. We have carrying cases with wheels and not wheels, but it's an extra cost to you since you don't use that to actually deploy to your polling locations. So for example, in the city, in terms of early voting, we can put 20 of these things in one of the carrier as opposed to 4 or 5 of the big H2 pluses. So that's something that you discuss with the jurisdiction and work that out collaboratively. In our experience, having a vendor design something for you and getting it to you is probably the wrong thing.
Our own Laura Grimm, to me, can you explain the infield fly rule? Yes.
That was the softball?
I cannot, actually. That's the one question.
He's not the sports guy. We'll talk to you about that later.
It's all about preventing an unfair double play, intentionally dropping it, and then doubling up runners on first and second, or first, second, and third.
Well done.
With less than 2 outs.
Sounds suspicious.
Gail Weisberg, does each ICX need its own printer?
Yes, it does. Again, that's a voter anonymity issue. So that's actually a pretty common question. Why don't we have multiple terminals and one printer? You've got multiple people voting at one time. You're not sure whose ballot gets printed out first. You're looking at other people's ballots. So yes, so each ICX does get its own printer and a BMD, or its own VPAT if it's working as a DRE.
Secondly, same questioner, why would we choose ICX system or the Evolution machine?
It's really jurisdiction dependent. We're not telling you what device works best for your voters and your jurisdiction, right? We provide a variety of solutions. We'll match whatever implementation you decide to go with. So, they both provide a full ADA compliant voter experience. They both provide printed paper records. They all have imaging of all of the ballots. They all have the audit mark. So it's just a different voter interaction.
Our philosophy is not one size fits all, right? The reason why we have 3 or 4 tables is because we do have 1,200 customers, and not all of them want the same thing. As you can see, even this unit, it's pretty much the same unit, but it has 2 entirely different functions for accounts. Clark County might want it this way, the city of Chicago might want it a different way, Cook County might want it a different way. So we don't believe in the one size fits all. We've been working with customers over the years to actually get feedback on these types of units. So we'll actually take prototypes in, show them the prototype, get their feedback. We work with the accessibility community on the ATI all over the country, from San Francisco to New York to Florida, and get that input. So that feedback is part of our development cycle. So you won't see a one size fits all that says, here's a big monster machine that you guys should go with because it has everything. It's not how it works.
Kevin McDermott, what mechanism replaces the HAT listener to receive cellular transmissions?
It's the ImageCast listener. So it's a similar infrastructure. It's obviously it's been updated for the latest and greatest. But yeah, so again, better encryption technology, but it's essentially this similar.
It needs to know what cell numbers are calling in, same thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Same concept.
Laura Chamberlain, how do you know Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, et cetera, are not storing the voter info, the ballots, the results, et cetera, in their own network, and thus open to NSA data mining?
Because all of the data is encrypted. The files are encrypted and then the channel's encrypted, so even if they could get the data, they don't have the keys to actually look at the data. Yeah.
There's 2 levels. The channel is encrypted, so they cannot get it. If for some reason they can get the data itself is encrypted, the one that we're sending. So it's a double encryption in that case.
Didn't they just decrypt Apple when they had that problem with the smartphone?
Well, I might point out, as far as the voter info, that's on a totally separate platform, so there wouldn't be any.
There's no identifying.
There's no Michael Jones information on a voter's system. There's no address, name, year of birth, any of that.
That data becomes public.
I thought the poll book.
The poll book That's a separate, totally separate function. You never want to connect the two.
Yeah.
You want them to be able to activate a card maybe, or
Yeah,
whatever the
The
system
card
might
doesn't
be.
have any voter information on it. It is simply a ballot style.
But you got to remember, the results that are being transmitted are public, become public anyway. They're broadcast once they're received. The point of the encryption and the security is to make sure that nothing changes during that tunneling of results.
The ballot images, though, are not completely made public, just the results.
That's up to the choice of the jurisdiction.
That's generally driven by state statute. So many states require, and the ballot images are basically subject to FOIA requests.
So if state law allowed or required us from any of these systems that were discussed today to make public the results, that would be the case.
In the case of California, we're the only vendor certified under the 2005 BVSG requirements, and California has deemed the actual image with the audit mark as the official record as opposed to the ballot. So you never have to really go to the ballot ever again for a recount or anything.
Okay. Pat Keenan, are you showing us the equipment that was tested in the Elections Ontario in 2016 in Canada?
That was tested? Not sure what the question is.
Two by-elections, we tested a new system with Dominion.
Elections Ontario just purchased 6,000 of the ICP.
Okay,
That machine right there.
okay, that answers my question.
So the testing went well.
They're doing online voting also. You'll count.
Yeah, they,
Right.
I'm sorry, I can't talk.
We can talk later, we can talk later.
Well, with that, again, thank you for a wonderful round of questions, very thoughtful. We hope that you learned as much as we did today, and moving forward, at some point we'll be developing and issuing an RFP. With that concludes today's presentations. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.